And going live on Facebook. Go live. Okay. Hello, Facebook world. It's Barb and my friend Pamela Ding Dong, otherwise known
Hello.
as Pamela, in Instagram world. And we're here today to talk about mental well-being and what it's looked like for us to get back to a point of joy and peace and happiness in our life. It's a big deal. It's nice. It's a good feeling to come back home to some of these really just basic ways of being if you've been missing that in your life for a while. So I encourage you to stay tuned. We're having a teddy bear picnic today. You can see Pamela's got her kitty and her big bear.
And a
And
live bear and a stuffed one.
some of my buddies here too.
Aw.
And for me, I'm really inspired by Pamela because of her journey and what she has decided for herself and kind of taken back into her hands her ability to have this mental wellness, because I know that journey myself and I know what that's like to get that back, and then what it's like to want to help other people find that too, because you know pass pass the vibration, pass the vibes, pass the love to all the people. Like, we all need more peace and harmony and well-being in our life. I did want to, before I get to your story, I just wanted to let everybody know some of these statistics that I found about mental wellness in 2023, at least in the States. I know you're in Canada, right?
Yeah.
So different area, but I'm sure there's stuff going on there too.
Oh, yeah.
So 21% of adults are experiencing a mental illness, equivalent to over 50 million Americans. And the percentage of adults reporting serious thoughts of suicide is 4.8%. So that's 5 out of every 100 people that you pass on the streets every day,
And I wonder how much that's gone up since this
recent.
2020, shall we say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really, let's see, 60% of youth with major depression do not receive mental health treatment, is another issue that we have going on. Yeah. In the US, there are 350 individuals for every one mental health provider.
Ooh.
So that means that you could have one appointment a year if we spread those providers out evenly.
Yeah.
23% of adults who report experiencing 14 or more mentally unhealthy days each month were not able to see a doctor due to costs. So this is another issue. I mean, this is a really long list of statistics, and I don't want to read it for too long because it just sounds so daunting. And I think that I really have had this experience, especially being on Medicaid and as a single mom, trying to get mental health services for myself and my son, just after the divorce. And when we started taking care of my mom in hospice, we were really in a hard place. And I got us on waiting lists. And, the day would come and something would come up or someone would be sick and we would miss the appointment. And then now it's another 3 or 4 months till you can see somebody. And
Wow.
there's so many ways that we can be embracing each other and embracing ourselves to help our mental wellness. And I'm looking forward to hearing about your journey. And that's just a little piece of mine, but it's so inspiring to see other people embrace their own mental wellness and take it into their hands. And we all need help. We need a network. We need a community. We need people with knowledge. But yeah, Pamela's going to tell us her story a bit, how she's come back into her inner child and just embraced her happiness and her joy. So I look forward to hearing about this. Go ahead, Pamela.
I didn't know how fired up I was about it until I did share my why. But I mean, my why to do this was to make sure people know that you don't have to suffer with mental illness. We think there's, I mean, I just thought I was either going to die by suicide or just suffer the rest of my life. Those were my two choices, and that was my prognosis. And now that now I know there's other ways. So I'm 56. I started feeling like I was suicidal about 12 years old, I think, when I started feeling like I wanted to hang myself in the barn. And also, I just want to say, like, I mean, I did self-harm. There's lots of things I did. So if you can't hear that kind of stuff, just know. I mean, I'm not going to be graphic or anything, but those things will be mentioned because they're part of my story.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Um, so if it sets you off, just please. Anyway, I wanted to hang myself in the barn and had no idea why. And of course, I didn't tell anybody because, well, I don't know. First of all, like, who you gonna tell? Like, we're not even. I had no idea what that was. That I had a problem mentally, or I didn't know that you're not really supposed to feel like that at 12 years old. Because how are you supposed to know? So I just kept it to myself. And one day, um, sometime later, I had taken my dad's jackknife and I was using it and slipped and stuck it into my thigh, and it felt good. And that was my first, I mean, it wasn't intentional self-harm, but I found out how good that felt. It just sort of took me out of my head and away from everything I was feeling in my head, and I could focus elsewhere. But I didn't actually harm myself intentionally until I was 18 and I went away to college. But all through high school, I missed a lot of things, uh, because I disassociated a lot and had no idea what that was. And I drank and partied and slept with all the guys and skipped school like crazy to go get obliterated. And I ended up in some pretty scary situations where some of my friends like actually saved me, like, leaving town with a bunch of guys, and one of my friends just pulled me right out the window. And thank God he did, because, uh, you know,
Mhm.
um, and I went away to college and totally lost my mind. I was running around the university, um, at night. Just things would turn into monsters, like the table would turn into a monster and chase me. And I wasn't even drinking at the time. Um, and the river was calling me to come drown myself. And they happened to, back in the day of payphones, there was a payphone on the wall. And some people are gonna be like, what even is that? Um, there was a number beside it of saying, do you need help? Call this number. And so I called, and they got me back in the day when you could see somebody right away. Um, and they got me in to see somebody, and I eventually, um, they did put me in the hospital for a week. And then, a couple months later, I took my first overdose and cut myself for the first time. And then that just became a steady stream for years and years and years, in and out and in and out and in and out. And sometimes like 6 months at a time in the hospital.
Mhm.
Um, I was 18 when oh my goodness, Kitty. I was 18 when I first experienced my first shock treatment. So the ECT, and back then they did it on both sides of the brain. I think now they only do it on one side, but they take you into a room, strap you to the table, and give you general anesthetic every other day for 6 to 8 times. And that's just the general anesthetic is a lot on a person, especially every other day. And then they put something in your mouth so you don't bite your tongue. And then they give you a good jolt.
Mm.
And the first time I had it, my mom said I lost control of my bodily functions and my memory. And it was really bad. And I mean, it did get me out of the hospital.
Are they still practicing that? Is that still commonplace?
Yep. Yep.
You feel like that has any sort of um positive aspect to the symptoms that you were experiencing?
Well, each time it got me out of the hospital. And
Mm.
the last time, like it was a 6-month stint where had a nurse with me at all times. They would not leave me alone because they found me in the bathroom. Um, I had tied something around my neck and I was blue. So they just when I had a nurse on me at all times, sleeping, going to the bathroom, like they're, yeah. Um, and they said, you're not going to get out of here unless, because nothing's working. You need to agree. So that's the third round. That was the last time I had to have that, but it got me out of the hospital that time too. So there is something that jolts you out of a severe depression, but there's still lasting side effects.
Well, it's interesting that there's an electrical component because I think about, how often we're talking about the vibration of these foods. And I think about how metabolism works. I have a friend that is an doctor of energetic medicine. So has like really dedicated her life to this study of how the different vitamins and minerals and things work in our body on a level of frequency. And there's just so much to that, which, the foods that we consume can definitely be connected to. And we'll get more into that later. But I'm like totally shocked. I had no idea that this is the amount of depth that you experience. My mother was actually in and out of the mental hospital right after my parents' divorce when I was young. And we didn't really know what was going on, but she would be like very distant at times and things
Yeah.
like that. And I didn't remember it.
Yeah.
And then when I was living with my aunt after I got kicked out of high school, I remember my aunt pulling me aside one day and saying something to me about my mother, like being in a mental hospital. And I was like, what are you talking about? Nobody had ever told me.
Wow.
So then I kind of got to like dive in a little bit and like start to see what happened, and it was manic depression and she took medication and I went through a period where I took medication too. And
Mhm.
then um it's really important to know that this kind of stuff can be in your lineage, it can be in your genes, and our gene expression, you know, can
Mhm.
like how our genes are expressing can be affected in lots of different ways. And so it's interesting that they used energy. But so what happened after that? You said that was your last time having that experience. So where did that take you?
Well, I don't know because everything kind of gets mushed together from 18 to 40 something because I was just in and out so much and so many different treatments and so much medication. And I mean, they would put you on. The last time I was in the psych ward, probably 8 years ago, they put me on 2 new medications and I gained 50 pounds in a month. And so by then I was like 305 pounds. And then they tell you, well, it's not the medication that's making you gain weight. And so it just puts the blame right on you. Well, it's your fault. And I mean, of course we have something to do with it because we have control of what goes in our mouths, but still the medication helps you put
Mhm.
that on
Yeah.
because my eating habits didn't change, but I gained 50 pounds. Uh, Oh, somebody's knocking on the door.
That's okay.
We'll just let them knock. Um,
Do what you feel.
if,
It's okay
if
if you need to go to the door. I could probably just talk for a little bit if you want.
if they're a real good friend of mine, they'll just come in and say hello, and they're not
Okay,
doing
good.
so. Yeah.
Okay, no worries.
Um, I can easily get pretty distracted, so we'll just keep going.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, things are kind of mushed together, but they'll put you on a lot of medication and it gives you side effects. So then they'll put you on more medication for the side effects. And I mean, at the end of my mental illness journey, um, I was on antipsychotics and antidepressants and anti-anxieties and something to sleep. And um, yeah, there was quite a few of them in there.
Yeah, I took an antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication actually after the first time that I separated from my ex-husband. And it was such an interesting experience. I took it for 6 months, and it was one of these ones that I guess like works across the receptor both ways. So it can kind of like repair things. Um, but I got to the end of the 6 months or whatever, and I ended up just getting back with my ex-husband because I was like, oh, well, everything's okay now. It's like it felt like the medicine like tricked me into thinking
Everything's okay.
everything's okay. But I
Yeah.
didn't do any real work to
Mhm.
actually change all the habitual mental pathways that I had formed for myself over
Mhm.
the course of, everything that I went through. It's just fascinating to me how much of an easier pathway it's been to really be doing some work with my mentality and
Yeah.
doing some shadow work and working with my habits and my behaviors and things like that. It's like my dad always said, the first thing should always be behavioral psychotherapy before there's any kind of medicine. My dad's a research psychopharmacologist. So he studies the effects of drugs and alcohol on the brain as a researcher. And,
Mm,
my son was like, the school was trying to say that he was ADHD when he was quite young, like about 10 or 12.
yeah.
And I was like, Dad, I do not want to put him. The lady told him, there's a little blue pill you can take and you'll make better friends and you'll do better in school.
Oh my gosh.
He didn't even have a diagnosis yet. And my kid is coming home telling me she did not have her job the next year.
You still
I'll
don't
put
have
it that
friends.
way,
Wow.
which is like super, like you're really not supposed to do that. But we took him to one of my dad's friends to have him evaluated. And they said he just has extreme anxiety, and
Mhm.
we had been through some traumatic stuff when he was little. And so um, that was relieving, still worrisome to know that your like small child has extreme anxiety. And I
Yeah.
think we discount like how much is going on in these children.
Mhm.
I was a teacher in public schools for like 10 years and private preschools and things. You know, it's just we just drop our kids off at school into the hands of a system. And I'm not saying there are not great teachers, great counselors, great resources for kids. There absolutely is, but not always, you
Mhm.
know, and it just takes a kid just going and not being addressed for so many years. They spend more time at school than they do at home with their
Yeah.
families.
Yeah.
And I love it that so many of our partners are homeschooling their kids and really like embracing um, time with family and like bringing back that family dynamic into education because it's really a missing piece. And so, um, yeah, because that inner child part of it all, that part of you that's still that little kid that made those choices, or not even just a little kid, but a young woman, a middle-aged, no matter where you are on your journey, you make the best choices that you know how to make, given the situation that you're in and the resources that you have available to you. And I think really just dropping the shame and the blame and all that part of it, to forgive yourself and just say, that's who I was. And God, look what I got through. Look at the things that I braved and look at the things that I survived, you
Mhm.
know? And then you're in that survival mode, right? And so I really feel that really good nutrition and self-care and self-love is what has brought me to that place, you
Mhm.
know? And it's the community. It's the community that we have. So what brought you to the point where you found Purium and you started to find this community that we've been working with?
So I was like really suffering. I was on so much medication. I had to sleep 12 hours a night and I was still tired and weighed 305 pounds. And so because I weighed so much, my body was deteriorating.
Mhm.
And so I had all the mobility aids. I had a motorized scooter to get around, to be able to get to the store. And sometimes I even drove it around the store. And my little dogs loved it though.
Ah,
um, and they love to ride it. Um, I mean, the thing to make the toilet higher, so you didn't have to hurt your knees, sitting down in the toilet, and a walker inside if I needed it. And like I, I was too young to have to start all that, and like the bath chair, everything to help you out. And so I knew somebody who had gastric bypass surgery in Mexico with a really good surgeon. And so I looked into it and I decided to go for it. So I went to Mexico and had the surgery. And I guess a lot of people that go to Mexico don't really do the research so they can come back um, already with infection by the time they get to Canada. So I didn't have anything like that because it was a cleaner hospital than any hospital I've been in Canada even. It was pretty
wow.
top of the line hospital. And the surgeon was really good. But at first, I had a complication and it took so long for the doctors to find it because I didn't have a doctor back here. I didn't
Mm,
have a surgeon back here. So that was a real um, sticking point for actually getting help because they don't really want to deal with another doctor's um, you know surgical
mhm,
whatever. So but finally after I just kept throwing up everything I ate. I threw up everything. I even drink anything I drank, I'd throw it up. And I started losing like massive amounts of weight, which you're supposed to do anyway, because gastric bypass puts you into malnourishment for 2 years.
mm.
Why you lose so much weight? And it doesn't sound good to me now, but um, so I finally ended up in the hospital because my blood sugars they got down to 2.4 or something. And so they admitted me to the hospital because they just kept dropping. They went from 3 something to 2 something, and I was on a couple of IVs, and they finally figured out that my new stomach tube was narrowed due to scarring, so they blew it up, and by the time I got up to my room, I wasn't even nauseous anymore, and then I could eat again.
Ugh,
So things just couldn't pass through. So if they can't pass through, they just have to come up. So then I was able to get some nourishment for a little while again, and then it went downhill again.
mm,
And it took months to even get somebody to look into it. And once they did, they found out that it wasn't the same thing. And so they put me on really strong anti-nausea meds, the same that cancer patients get. And I would throw that up even, and then they would give me shit. Well, it works for cancer patients. Like why isn't it working for you? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
This is where my mom was at after she had her hip surgery. She was already dealing with multiple organ failure, and she was on like 20 or 30 different medications for her blood sugar and her blood pressure. And we had to like check her oxygen all the time. She was just in a really delicate state. And so when she was taking the painkillers, and she started taking like an anti-anxiety medicine because she kept panicking and feeling like she couldn't breathe. Um, Purium was the only thing that she could keep down.
Yeah.
And that was when I met Kimberly Sanders, because she came to my house and we were like, we don't know what to do. She's not eating anything. And everything we give her, she, throws it up. And it was the can't beat this and some appleberry shake. And I would crush the aminos up and put some of that in for her. And within a month, she was back and forth to the bathroom again and go walk into the chair to go watch her CNN. And, it's pretty amazing. It really, it's amazing how many people suffer through this kind of, now she was on those same anti-nausea medications and things. How many people deal with that? And
Yeah.
it could be so simple. It could be so simple as the hospital's offering the purest, most premium, easeful food for their
Yeah.
patients.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're not there yet. We'll
Yeah.
get there.
And I mean, so I probably spent I ate a lot of hospital food because I used to spend up to 150 days a year in the hospital. So yeah. So um finally, like I had to, my mom and dad both died and I had an inheritance, but I had to, in order to get access to it, I had to hire a lawyer and go after my family. Um, to so that's a whole other story. But I finally got, my, I call it my, we what's that word? My daughter and I call it. It's my daughter and I are just kind of we abandon ship, the family ship, and we're just kind of floating on our own. But
Sometimes that's best.
yeah, we got emancipated. That's what I call it. We
Uh-huh.
emancipated ourselves. But as soon as I gained my financial freedom with that, I hired a holistic nutritionist, and she said, you have to order this. And she just sent me a link, and I had no idea what was coming.
Mhm.
And it came to the door, and I was still throwing up everything. So to mix the power shake, I could only do a shot glass at a time, so like an ounce.
Mhm.
And I couldn't really take anything else.
Mhm.
And so I did that for, I don't know, a week or two, and then just gradually increased it. Ouch. And then I started putting the biomedic, just opening up the capsule and putting it in the shake. And I crush up my aminos and put those in the shake. But when I was really nauseous, that was the only thing that took that nausea down.
Mhm.
And I couldn't believe it. Really couldn't believe it. And then, I mean, I went from 305 pounds to 170, I think, with just the gastric bypass.
Mhm.
Um, so when I started getting on Purium, and I started to be able to eat, and I still on all this medication. And I said to my doctors, I said, I sleep 12 hours a night in a dead sleep. If my house catches on fire, even with all the smoke alarms in it, I'm still going to die in the fire. unless somebody just comes in and carries me out, because I just don't get up.
Mhm.
And if I do get up, I have to make my way to the bathroom by holding on to all kinds of things and pretty much crawling there because I cannot function.
Mhm.
And he was like, "Oh, yeah, well, I guess you lost some weight. You're probably on too much medication."
Yeah, maybe, huh?
Really?
Gee.
I'm still on the same amount of antipsychotics that I, you know, was on, 170, 100 and some pounds heavier.
And that's
And
the kind of oversight. That's the kind of thing where it's like, who is having oversight
yeah,
for patients? I
well,
mean, it's one thing if you're actually going to a psychiatrist and you're actually working closely with that psychiatrist, but we have, it seems like all these doctors out here that will just prescribe you a blanket prescription for this or that. And
well,
yeah,
he
there's
was
just
my
been no,
psychiatrist that I was seeing regularly, but I still had to remind him, well, look, that is this too much medication now? Oh yeah. Um, so that was my start of reducing medication because we reduced a lot of them. And then when I got more into Purium and really started seeing results, I started just going off them. So, I stopped one thing and I went, wow, because when I'd gone off antipsychotics before, like it was not good. I was, spiders the size of dinner plates would be crawling up the wall, and I don't have that.
wow,
Yeah,
that's
and I would just
remarkable.
see, like a big shadow just walk by, and all of a sudden I'd be like, what even is that? And I don't have any of that anymore. And um went off my anti-anxiety, and like that's all very scary too, to go off that when you've been on a number of these things for 30 some years. And because they tell you if you've been on them for over 2 years, you're forever. You'll never
Ugh,
get off them ever. Um, and that's what they're looking for, is forever and patient.
yeah.
Um, so my last thing to go off was antidepressant, and that was the scariest thing because there's no way. I mean, I can deal with spiders crawling up the wall, but I can't handle being in that deep, dark abyss that makes you want to off yourself. Can't do it.
Yeah.
Because I had met somebody through my whole journey of mental illness who was severely mentally ill, and she had periods of clarity. And one day I was sitting with her and she had this such period of clarity, and she looked at me and she said, um, that she took so much medication and darn near died, and that's what really fucked her up. But she screwed up her daughter so badly with this, really bad. And she was screwed up in the first place because her mother had killed herself.
Mhm.
And I went, I can't do that to my daughter. I cannot fuck up my daughter for the rest of her life. Can't.
Mhm.
So, going off that anti-anxiety was the scariest thing ever. But I did, and never looked back. But going off it, it wasn't just like a walk in the park either, because I didn't realize being on all this medication numbed you out so much to all the feelings and all the experiences in the world. And it just felt like I felt like I was a new baby or something, just experiencing everything. And everything was just so much. And I just felt so much. I cried for so long. And every time I moved my body, I went to yoga class, I'd lay on the floor, we're supposed to be meditating, I'd just be shaking because it'd just be bawling. Or I'd go to dance class and cry through the whole thing and couldn't, I was
Yeah.
just like, what the fuck is this?
And like that somatic release. Like I did a lot of work with my body too, coming back into sobriety, because as a dancer, I kind of had that awareness about how we hold stuff in our body. Because I can remember going through things and getting physically injured and holding, and I have spots in my body, still where I hold certain stresses. And as soon as I get back and I start doing the work, and I'm moving my body and I'm breathing and I'm releasing, I'm getting those pathways opened up, then all the nadis opened up. Um, those feelings are released again. And I feel like it is like a pattern, like we hold these patterns in our body, and it's like a cycle, but you can like wean the cycle out. You can slow it down, you can open it up, you can press it like away. And the more and more of that you embrace, and um the more self-care that you practice, the better state that you get yourself into. And I mean, I'm really big on like, be here now, and don't like pressure yourself about if you're doing enough or if you're doing it right, or if you're, I think there's a big aspect of giving yourself that grace to kind of go through the process at the pace that you need to, and
Mhm.
let things unfold naturally and organically. I mean, yeah, you need to be disciplined and press in that direction. You can't just become dormant or lazy, for too long. You know, my mom
Yeah,
used to say everything in moderation, including
yeah,
moderation.
yeah.
And I just love that way of saying it, because it's really been a good mirror for my journey. And just giving myself little piece by, I think it was Dan Tomlinson that said the other day, like 1% at a time or whatever. Just give yourself that 1% at a time, and give yourself, these better foods to eat, and give yourself a physical practice, some way of being with your body, and some sort of spiritual practice, whether it's church or whether you meditate, or no matter what it is, give yourself some way to get in touch with those bigger energies around you that help you, remember where you're at and what's your place and who are you in it, and really have that community there to support you, like what we have here at Purium. And I've got several friends, that I talk to, that whether it's with addiction or whether it's with feeling depressed or anxious or not good about themselves, that I talk to and I encourage. And,
Mhm,
not everybody's ready to dive in, but
mhm.
it's so awesome when they do and they come in, and you get to see them have some clarity as well. It's actually, it's like working with kids, when you're working with people that are all in this state of like metamorphosis and transforming and becoming, it's a very soft space, and it's a very sensitive space.
Mhm.
And it's a space that's been abandoned by Western medicine. Like they'll give you the medicines, and there's the health results, and there's the medicines and the procedures and the tests, their ability to see inside your body and see what's going on. It's really amazing. My mom had a kidney transplant. There's so many aspects of Western medicine that are so useful and so helpful at different stages. But oh man, when you get embraced by a community of wellness practitioners who are just really like wrapping their arms around you and helping support you and give you all these answers that the medical system just doesn't provide anymore. It's just, hard to access. And the mentality of all of it is so important.
Well,
And
I had a holistic nutritionist that I'm in Canada. She lives in New York that helped me more than any doctor all around me. Yeah.
Mhm.
And even after my period journey started, I started experiencing, oh yeah, one thing I want to say about going off the medication, and you talked about community. I did tell my closest friends that live like here, because I have to be able to see you. I said, if you see anything that you are concerned about, because others around you will see it before you do, you tell me right now, Pamela, I think you're slipping, or I'm concerned about you. And so, I mean, I would go down into some days where I had to take some time out. But one thing I say is it's okay to do that. It's okay to have the days where you just need to spend in bed. You can do that. You just can't unpack and live there.
Yeah.
That's where the problem lies.
I love how Jim Carrey said it when he was talking about depression or being depressed, in that you are needing deep rest. And
Mhm.
and he described it as, your body and your spirit gets tired of upholding this character that you're feeling like you need to be. And
Mhm.
that is the cultural norm of, you get up at 6 in the morning, you eat breakfast, you get ready, you get out the door, you go to work, you get home, you eat the lunch, you go back to work. Like there's just this like
Robotic.
prescription of life that we're expected to live. And that looks really different ways for all kinds of different people. People are going through things that you can't imagine. People are going through things that you wouldn't believe. And we pass them on the street every day. And we're all held to the same standard of what we're supposed to do. And that goes for new moms with tiny little babies who have just been through this traumatic physical event, and they're expected to just get back to work in 6 weeks and
Yeah.
separate from their baby. I mean, there's so many aspects of the way that we neglect the mental well-being of ourselves as a culture, you know, and the love and respect that I have for the community that has been formed around this superfood company, like this should be, and it happens in other places. You look at people like in AA, or like, people have all kinds of therapy groups and sessions, and there's definitely a ramping up of this kind of thing, which I think is, thank goodness that we as humans have the intuition to understand what we need to create. Like they're not going to do it, let's do it ourselves. So, and I get to meet people like you and hear just these amazing, inspiring stories. So will you just tell me a little bit about your first pack, or your first run with Purium, and like, what was that point where you really realized like, this this is gonna be it. This is like working the deepest part. I just remember having that experience myself, like, wow, like this is different.
No, I don't even know. I don't even think I don't really have that because I I experienced some more like part way into my Purium journey. I started my extremities started going numb,
Mm,
and the doctors kept saying, well, I don't know what's wrong with you. And they would do blood tests, and yeah, they thought, well, I guess low B12 does that, and my B12 wasn't low, and they just couldn't figure it out. And then it just started progressing. Like I couldn't feel the tips of my fingers, and my face was going numb.
uh-huh.
And then it progressed, like my saddle area was totally numb. And I remember, the doctor saying, come to emergency as soon as it progresses. So 4 o'clock in the morning, I realized my saddle area, we'll call it, is numb. And I went to emergency, and the nurse just said, go home. I'm not calling the doctor in for your numb bum. So, okay. Because
Uh-uh.
it's a small hospital, they have to call the people in, right? As there's not just doctors in the ER. And I mean, it just kept progressing, and pretty soon I was so tired. I had trouble walking, I had trouble talking. And after spending a weekend on my living room floor, it was in the middle of winter and it was cold and I couldn't even feel the cold. And I burnt my fingers because I picked something out of the freezer and I couldn't even
Yeah.
tell that it was ice cold. And so I had frostbite on my fingertips. And I
Ugh,
remember like running something up my arm, like scissors, digging it into my arm because I'm like, I don't even know why can't I feel that? It was just getting number and number.
yeah.
And finally, after spending a weekend on the floor, and this is still in the middle of my period journey,
Yeah.
um, I had to call 911 and they had to come get me and take me to the hospital. And finally, the doctor's like, okay, so this has really progressed. I think we need to look at this. Thank goodness.
Yes.
So they admitted me to the hospital, and then pretty soon they're putting in a catheter, and then I'm in diapers. And then my speech started sounding like I was stroking out
Mm.
and scaring the shit out of my daughter. And finally, after they shipped me to the bigger city where I was in the neurology unit,
Mhm.
and they did all the tests. I had so many MRIs and all kinds of tests.
Huh.
And once they figured out that there's actually nothing wrong with my brain, the neurologist sent his team in to give me my diagnosis. And they came in and they said, we want you to go to this website. And they wrote a website down on the board in my room and they left. And
What?
so I went to the website and it said functional neurological disorder. And I'm like, that's what they're diagnosing me with. And it's partly psychiatric. So that's how I found out I have this. They wrote it on the freaking board and I read it on the website.
See, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, that's the kind of thing you want to be like holding someone's hand and
And then I was
ugh.
immediately discharged. And my neurologist at the hospital didn't write the referral right to an outside neurologist. And so I kept calling them and they finally said, well, the referral's wrong, so we can't see you. And I just started to cry, like, why are you guys all just punishing me so badly? Because why? And so the head neurologist actually ended up seeing me.
Good.
And when I was in the hospital, I was like, I had a walker again. I had trouble walking. My
Uh-huh.
hands were like this. I couldn't even eat.
Huh.
At times, it would sound like I was stroking out, and then it would get a little better. And they
Uh,
said the only way to get even just walking a little bit again is to go to a special physiotherapist, but you can't go because of COVID.
ugh,
If it's over, maybe you can go. So just go home and try to cope the best you can.
ugh.
So I came home with a walker again, and I was so upset. Here I am in a freaking walker again.
Yeah.
But when I was in the hospital, I was in there a week maybe, um, but eating this food, and I'm texting my holistic nutritionist going, how the hell am I supposed to heal with this food? Because you had to look at the menu to see what it was. As you get a couple of slices of bread and
Mhm.
circle in the middle of it that was kind of a green color. And you knew it was meat, you just weren't sure what kind of meat it is. You had to look at the menu, but there's nothing on it. There's not even a hunk of lettuce or a tomato. And
Yeah.
I kept saying, I have to get home to my superfoods. Like
Yeah.
can I heal here? And so I got home and got back on my superfoods and flooded my body with nutrition, and then just kept walking around the house with my walker and just kept walking and walking and walking. And I totally overcame that. And by the second time in 6 months, I went to see my neurologist again, because the first time I'd worked so hard that he said, how are you even walking in here today? You're supposed to be rolling in a wheelchair. You are unable to walk. And I said, well, no, 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 mindset and nutrition, man, there's no way I'm wheeling around. I walk.
Yes.
Um, and then the second time I saw him within 6 months of my discharge, he was discharging me from the entire program because I was doing so well on my own. The, I didn't need to wait for the physiotherapy and
Wow.
and I remember just he said, I am just blown away. Okay, I need to let the dog out. It's
Yeah,
gonna
sure. Go
knock
ahead.
on the door.
No
Okay,
worries.
there you go. He's a 60-pound dog, so he's gonna destroy the door.
Yeah,
Um,
go right through it.
I said, he said, like, how did you even do this? I said, well, you know the power of mindset and nutrition, don't you? And he couldn't answer me because he doesn't know.
Whew. These doctors got some stuff to learn. I
Yeah.
tell you, we got to meet, it's got to be like some kind of marriage that happens between the wellness community and the medical system. There's like this perfect place in the middle where it could all just be functioning together so well, you know, and it's hard to exactly see the pathway to that merging, but I guess we kind of are that pathway, just trying to bridge the gaps.
Once people see that, wow, my doctor really doesn't have any answers for me, as when I like to, that's what I like to hear. Now, of course, I mean, we do have things that we definitely need medical, because my family thought, I mean, my daughter thought I was having a stroke. So, I mean, you need medical intervention, and thank goodness it's there.
So,
But they don't have all of the answers, and how could they? We expect them to have all the answers, and they just don't.
they just do this like really hocus pocus version of preventative care where they like hand you a piece of paper with 5 exercises on it and go, all right, go do these. Like it's like,
Yeah.
you know, it's just like not enough. And if they would just let some of the funding trickle into preventative care and some other healing modalities like acupuncture and massage and behavioral psychotherapy. I mean, nutrition, you know, lifestyle stuff.
Yeah.
Like this stuff, if they would just introduce that at the onset, because what they do is they listen to your symptoms and they start with like the least scary thing that it could possibly be. And they try to treat that. And then if that doesn't work, they jump to the next more severe thing that it could maybe be. And then they try to treat that. And it's almost like this, like I understand why somebody came up with the idea of doing it that way.
Mhm.
But if the front line could be mindset, mental wellness, nutrition, you know, some fitness,
Yeah.
some sort of somatic work in your body,
Yeah.
I mean, it would just be so exciting to see that be the opportunity that everybody has. Because, if you've got like really amazing insurance and you're seeing the best doctor in your city, that doctor is going to tell you exactly what to do because the current research is reflecting the fact that mindset and nutrition and these other, self-care modalities is the front line of what you do to
Mhm.
get yourself to like peak optimal performance.
I
And
had a
so,
psychiatrist once when I was 18 say, I think you need some vitamins. And I was prescribed some vitamins in the hospital. That's the only time.
mhm,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's really just it just starts to get to a point. It's getting to a point for me where it just all is feeling really foolish. I mean, I have taken anatomy, I've taken physiology, I've taken exercise physiology. I am not a doctor by any stretch of the mind. But I've learned enough about the body um to understand, like, and this is what happens with science, right? Like there's like all these theories that come into play and this way of doing things and this philosophy of medicine, and they put it into place and then they organize and structure the whole system around it. And that system is like a stone wall that now all the researchers and doctors and wellness practitioners are like stuck inside of. And we've got, and that's why I love the activism wing of what we do, is because, you just learn so much about the cutting edge of what's going on and what's possible. And being able to get that information out to people and get people to understand that there are alternative methods that you can apply along with Western medicine, where necessary. But learning that line between, like, when is it too much of this and not enough of this, and like how to balance that line and that go between of when can preventative care be it, and when, so we're like circus people, like balancing in the middle. And I love it. I love that. I love that we get to do that and help people in that way.
I remember one of my customers told her doctor that she was starting the ULT, and she told him about it. And he said, "Oh, you don't need all that. I've got a pill that can do the same thing." And she went, "No, thanks." But
Yeah.
that just blows my mind. You don't need all that nutrition.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. You don't need it. I got a pill for that. Let-
Yeah. It's just like a reductionist, you know, philosophy of like, well, it's these specific components. It's just like how they don't connect that our digestive system is connected to our nervous system, and it's connected to it's all synergistic, you
Mhm.
know, and they don't even acknowledge that as a basic philosophy that, you know, the digestive system needs to be working properly. So you need to give the foods that the digestive system knows what to do with, which is not man-made things,
Well,
you
if I
know.
said 95% of your serotonin is made in your gut, that's all you need to know.
Mhm. Yep. And it's the amino acids, right, that build those hormones, the serotonin, the dopamine, the norepinephrine. And so if you're consuming lots of bulky meat protein, your body is not having all of that be bioavailable to you. So you're only getting a percentage of that when your body's having to produce all this bile to like push all of that material out of your body. So when you're taking like what we have, the vegan sourced amino acids, your body's not having to do all that work to break it down. You're getting all these enzymes from all of the live dehydrated foods that you're eating, and it's all just working and flowing exactly how it's supposed to. It's, you want to paint the picture for people, and it's a lot of knowledge. What I've really learned working with people is that it's a lot of things to understand. Like, you're either somebody who's really comfortable with taking a risk and being like, okay, I'm going to put, this portion of my food budget every month into this other way of eating. Like, you're either a person that can just take that risk and do that, or you're somebody that really wants to know, what is this about before you make that jump? And so this process of really just slowly educating people and helping them understand what's possible and why we do it the way we do it and what those results can be like, but it's
Mhm.
like the information's all there. So
Mhm.
it's like I'm just patiently, working with people all the time and helping them see and understand. And yeah, it's quite a role to fill. It's been so much fun. And I feel like I don't know what time it is, but it might
And
be.
even for me, 3 years into Purium,
Mhm.
my mental health is still improving
Mhm.
because I still, even 3 years on Purium, I still had horrible anger issues. Like a couple of months ago, I made a mistake in traffic, and traffic really got me going. But I mean, I had to pull over to the side of the road. I was so angry, and I gave myself a concussion.
Mhm.
Oh, what is all that noise? Somebody's trying to call now. Somebody's trying to get in, somebody's trying to call. I'm popular today. Um, the anger was still really there. Like I put holes in the walls, like angry. And I started taking Revive-It-All,
Mm.
and I don't have that anger at
Yeah.
all.
I
Like
haven't taken
cat-
Revive It All yet. I really want to add that. I
it's
do the white
life
American dancing, but
changing.
yeah.
My cat would dig up plants, and my house used to be full of plants, and my cat Swifty would dig up a plant, and I would be so angry that I would just take it and I would go outside and I'd just smash it on the ground, and I would yell, and like I'd destroy the plant, even if she didn't.
Hmm.
She dug up all four of my tomato plants. And I said, "Oh, Swifty." And that's all I did. And I swept it up and I went, "Oh my God."
That is such a good feeling. And I had results like that. I feel like just from taking like the biomedic and the aminos and just doing the standard schedule really helped me so much. Like becoming a single mom right before the pandemic and taking care of my mom. And I was dealing with some alcoholism, and my boys were acting out all the time. It was really bad. You know, kids going to jail. This kid's getting kicked out of school. This one's getting like, it's just been this crazy like roller coaster. And like having the visceral experience of your nervous system calming down is so, it's nurturing on such a deep level. It's like almost inexplainable. It's like that feeling of like cuddling up with like a teddy bear or something, where it's just this like deep, or like a weighted blanket or something. It's just this like really calming experience. And yeah, now that I've had that experience, and like also because of having that experience, the realization of what I was going through before and how I was just like irritating that scenario with all of my behaviors, like
Mm,
over and over and over again. Yeah, I just wish it for everybody. I wish for everybody to have that feeling of mental homeostasis, let's call it, that chemical balance. When you come into chemical balance,
mhm.
is really what it is on the inside, an energetic balance of the metabolism of the chemicals in your body. And I just wish it for everyone. And there's so many stories like this in Purium of people that really have come off of every psych med that you can imagine, you know, come out of all kinds of anxiety, depression, just everything, and it just makes you go, hmm,
Hmm.
the
And then
proof is in the Purium for sure.
thinking about that, and I made this
Yes.
homemade chocolate. What I learned from my holistic nutritionist about raw cacao, because there's raw cacao in this, is
Mm.
that it releases the bliss chemical anandamide.
Mm.
Eat the raw cacao.
Well, I've been drinking actually every morning. I've been a coffee drinker since my mom gave me my first cup of coffee at like, I don't know, 5 or something. She was like, here, just half milk, half coffee.
Wow.
Um, but I am able to stop drinking coffee using superfoods. And recently, what I've been doing in the morning is a tablespoon of cacao and a tablespoon of sacha inchi, which is another like really good like nut protein, vegan nut protein. And I always make sure, it's organic,
Yeah.
non-GMO, all the things. But that, which is a little bit of honey and some cinnamon and some ginger and some cayenne pepper. And it's like this spicy,
Mm.
I mean, it's just like such a good, it's so nice to know that you can replace like moldy processed coffee and other things
Yeah.
with And this recipe that you just posted, I want to try it. Will you send me the recipe or did you type it out in
I
your,
typed it out, yeah. And
okay.
it's just, I mean, there's no measurements with it because I don't, this is something that, it's just a recipe from, I just started throwing things together in my head, so there's really no measurements.
I love it. You're like, just dump this,
Yeah,
sprinkle this.
and
Okay, cool.
I just kept mixing up a little arrowroot starch with water until it thickened up, so,
Love it.
yeah.
I'm gonna try it for sure. There's another good, my friend made a recipe and it was for cheesecake, vegan cheesecake. And she
Mm,
does avocado and banana just whipped up with a little bit
yum,
of honey. And
yeah.
that is the cheesecake filling. Could do the crust, however, but
Oh,
yeah, it's another yummy one to try. Chill
yum.
it for a little bit.
And then I made my own oat and coconut milks yesterday
Yeah.
because the commercial oat and coconut milk is just starting to screw with my system.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so I just can't even use it anymore just because I bloat as soon as I have it now. So, I mean, you just get more sensitive to these chemicals now that
Did you use a cheesecloth when you strained the oats or just like a regular strainer?
in my nut bag.
Oh, you have a nut bag.
Milks, yeah. Except,
Okay.
okay, so somebody said, somebody, was thinking about joining Kelly and Georgie's team, and she said, am I too goofy to do this? And I said, heck no, I do this whole thing goofy, because I did my first cooking video, and I giggle because I call it my nut sack.
I know. I was just gonna say, all you need to have the balls to join Purium is a nut sack.
Yeah.
And then you're in there.
Anyway, yes, I have a nut bag that I use to strain it, and then I want to make cookies out of the pulp today.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. I love
Yeah.
oatmeal cookies too.
And then
Yum.
I was on fire yesterday because I made melon seed milk for the first time too, and that was easy.
Ooh,
I used my
melon
nut
seed
bag.
milk.
Yeah.
Do you crush it or blend it or what do you do to the
And
melon seeds?
so
Ooh,
I took the melon seeds and then I took some of the melon as well. It says to add some melon, put some water in there and blend it really well.
huh. Yum.
Just squeeze it through the nut bag.
I love you just squeeze
Nut
it right
sack.
in the sack. Suck it down. That's all you
But
can.
melon milk is really good. And it's not even,
Oh,
it's more like juice because there's no milk in it. But
yeah, I'll have to
and
try that too.
the I have some young Thai coconut hunks like dried that
Mhm.
is supposed to be like a snack, but I can't chew it. So I've got them soaking right now to make more coconut milk.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll keep my eye out for that recipe too. Well, I can't tell you how appreciative I am for you to come and share your story like this. It's
Oh,
um it's such a liberating thing to do, but it's also a very powerful thing to do. And a lot of people will not do it for
mhm.
whatever reason, and I respect that. But
Yeah.
there's just something about letting your story be a beacon for other people, that is just so empowering. That's how I feel about it. If we're not here to tell our stories, what are we here for?
Yeah.
So I honor you and I really respect your journey and I'm so inspired by you. So
Yeah.
thanks for coming on and
You're
getting
welcome.
to be with me.
I wish you could taste the chocolate.
Oh, I will. I'm gonna make it and I'll
Oh,
tag you when I
well,
do.
it's got like dates and organic peanut butter on it too. So I
Mm,
did. Yeah.
yes.
I'll probably post that because it's kind of like a bark thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want the full recipe, full
All
on
righty.
making it.
Okay.
Pamela, much love to you. Have a
Too.
beautiful rest of your Sunday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.